G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 19th of September 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood Aid, Pearl Games, Into the Earthbound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire, Part 1 available now. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the patrons and other supporters who help make this channel possible. And if you'd like to join them and support the channel, all my links are in the link tree. Now, every day, The Guardian echoes Zelensky. And of course, if any other newspaper echoed Putin, they would be Putin puppets! But The Guardian is the guardian of democracy! The unelected president of Ukraine says, "We have important success! We have pushed back the troops!" Where? 160 square kilometers. Maybe. Yeah. De Borrelia, but we'll get to that. But for now, that's about the size of the Relia and the size of the land they reclaimed. Well, 170 kilometres would be... well, all of that. But we'll get to that. Claim shortly. First off, we have, this was breaking news yesterday, but I had already finished recording. Russian mass production has increased. A new drone factory has been spotted, and trucks bearing drones headed towards Rostov-on-the-Don. This new facility has hundreds of these 3.5 meter black drones standing in rows. Now, this ain't China. Okay, in the past, people would dismiss this as propaganda. $3,000 plus videos out there showing Russian troops in training with drones. Big military operations with drone swarms being tested, air defenses, guns, missiles, electronic warfare. Russia's relying on the most effective tool of propaganda, truth. Now, doesn't mean that we're not talking about morality here. The Russian army could defeat Europe if there was no US. That's, however, would be devastating to both and leave Europe and Russia wide open to conquest either by China, India, or the Middle East, or a combination thereof, through to just the countries no longer able to even control their borders, even if they wanted to. But of course, it also is contingent on the UK having exhausted all its resources in Syria and Ukraine as well. But of course, US and China hold the balance of power right now. India is not as reliable. Tensions between India and Russia are low, but tensions between Russia and China are high, and tensions between India and China are much higher. And we're now hearing of the Xi curse and the Modi curse. The Xi curse, of course, is any president who goes to meet and deal with Xi Jinping, 9 out of the 12 in the last two years have all either left office involuntarily or suffered humiliating defeats. Russia's the exception, so is India for now. The Modi curse. Anybody who runs against Modi seems to have an accident. People in India are worried about an increasing nationalistic India, reminiscent of the Indian Nationalist Party, and which could lead to a conflict with Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now, for now, US have put Modi's ambitions on hold, but for how long? Again, most people would dismiss this as propaganda, but we've seen the drone swarms, we've seen drone attacks on Ukraine, we've seen the testing, we've seen videos of drones, and we know that Russia's production and energy production has spiked. Gives you an idea of the scale of the drone. Although the engine is, it's a bit messy to the way of doing it. Now, some of these warhead types. Now, of course, the standard warhead was increased to 50 kilograms recently. I said 5 the other day. Most of the old types carry only 5 kilograms of high explosive. Well, it turns out I was off. It was 35. My mistake. But it has the new Shahid. I don't know why they call them Shahid too. They're 50 kilograms, and the Shahid 3 apparently is 90 kilograms. And of course, they're going to give you the propaganda as well, anti-Russian propaganda. But yeah, the War College, was it the War College? Yeah, I think it was the War College, confirmed that this is indeed a genuine threat. Russians are on the verge of being able to launch drone swarms against Ukraine in much larger numbers. Yeah, don't know what to call it, G2, that's been renamed the Giran. And the Grian 2 50 kilogram warhead, Grian 3 is a 90 kilogram warhead, and there's talk of a much bigger drone with strike capabilities. Now, the Russians' Hunter Killer is back to the drawing board for now to increase its fuel range, to decrease its fuel usage, increase its range. But apparently it has conducted successful strikes in the past. They lost one. And yeah, they don't like losing. But I think you knew that already. Neither does Zelensky. And you may wonder, well, what a coincidence, because both Putin and Zelensky are Russians. What a shock that Russians who don't like to lose are fighting each other. All right, day 1303 is near over, with fighting continuing day and night, although most of the night fighting is sporadic. You have propaganda showing off a Stinger 2, I think, and their defense unit. Without American technology, these guys would be just standing around. Wouldn't even have binoculars. All right. Once again, Ukraine targets Russian energy. Once again, Ukraine complains about Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy. Ukrainian units have claimed to have breached the Ukrainian trench lines at Yampol and secured new positions in the area. We'll get to the map because Valery Gerasimov has claimed Russia is gaining in almost all directions, and he's right, almost all, not every. Zelensky claims to have inflicted massive losses on the invaders, and we have saved the city of Pavosk. Well, we're heroes. Actually, it wasn't Pavosk, but anyway. It was near Pavosk. And we're not blaming Zelensky for the false information. He actually did say they were actually his troops allegedly reclaimed in Dobophilia. So this is Al Jazeera being full of cheese and crackers. Speaking of cheese and crackers, I had a crash earlier and I forgot to reopen the tabs and actually just found some new information, so we'll continue. Ukraine is allegedly training Polish soldiers and engineers in drone warfare. Don't you mean it's the other way around? No! Both Polish soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers and engineers are being trained by the UK. Don't let the media lie to you, folks. Now, the peace processes, I say plural because there are more than one, are stumbling. President Trump has expressed his disappointment over his failure to secure a peace deal in Ukraine. That's not Putin's fault. That is Biden's little boy, Zelensky, just sitting there in Ukraine with his arm folded, trying to run out the clock and then hoping that the US will go to war. Trump wants to secure peace and rebuild Ukraine. That's fine. That shouldn't be considered provocative, and Putin doesn't see that as provocative. But however, when President Trump says disappointed, seems to me, although he doesn't know him well, I've spoken to him several times, that's partly because he wants quick solutions. Yeah, okay. But I mean, he should be taking a swipe at Zelensky sitting there in Kiev with his arm folded. Did I say Kiev? I mean the Remstein. I mean the base in Poland. We all know he ain't in Ukraine most of the time. Zelensky went full on bullshit. Always with the bullshit. Alright. I located one of the towns that was mentioned. I couldn't locate the other. Right. Now we go over the map, which has actually updated since I originally loaded this, which is why it's reloading right now. Every time I move something, it reloads. Alright, we've had a drone attack, a second drone attack on Kiev. We've got multiple fighting on Sumny at the buffer zones. Again, more fighting at the buffer zones, including a new outbreak of fighting between the buffer zones here. We have fighting, as I said, Ukraine has come on fighting on the flanks, as well as in Kupiansk, which a quarter of the city is still being held by Russia. The The Ukrainian counteroffensive in Kupiansk has failed. Fighting in the north of Lyman has intensified but stalled. Sort of. Russia's made huge gains northeast of Silvesk. Some gains south of Silvesk. Not big, however, in the south, but yeah. And we'll get to this. See the size of the amount of land. Russia's gained more land than Zelensky claims that they rescued. And, well, rescued is a tough word, Zelensky. We'll get to that soon. Russia's hit glide bombed on the second Zelensky line. Artillery strikes on Krominska becoming routine. Fighting has netted some, but not very significant. In fact, you would say insignificant gains. Now, there have been only some gains here on the north. Now, when we get to Zelensky's announcement, Zelensky claims to have saved all of this from the Russians. The Russians were fighting here. They were fighting along the rail line. And, well, allegedly. Where in fact, according to the Russian news, they've only managed to, even the Russians admit they only managed to capture this much. Zelensky claims that the valiant defenders rescued 160 square kilometers or 62 square miles. That's all of this town and that. Well, you see the size of Donetsk? That's about the size of the land northeast of Donetsk, Silvesk, that Russia captured today. So, what's Zelensky talking about? And you can see the map has slightly increased since. Now, here they are stalled. I've never said that they haven't. But Zelensky says the valiant defenders saved Provesk, according to The Guardian, which is a lie, because in the Zelensky statement it was Dobrobilia. But no, the Russians have taken more land, not much, but taken key, pushed further down the road. They're in almost all of half maybe. Okay, they've taken all of this town. They were, but pushed back here. But they're not really pushed back. They're only halted, really. Pushed back here a little bit. They were up to here. So there is a few areas where they were pushed back, but that's overall over the last week. And don't forget the Ukrainian, the valiant defenders who pushed back the Russians. Well, come on. At Unichin. Well, yeah, where's that offensive? Gone. And Unichin is now fully in Russian hands. So, I don't know what Zelensky's talking about. Or is it the media? Of course, there's other areas where Russia's advanced and taken territory and squeezing the Ukrainians out. Cut them off from the roads here. Cut into here. They've taken so this here with the road up through here, isn't it? But there's roads all the way through here. So roads and farms. Of course, past this point, no, very little past that. But still, you can see the Russian offensive is rolling over the Ukrainians in most, but not all, areas. In fact, you wouldn't even say it's the majority. But Ukraine has lost its independence, according to Alexander Stepanov, who points out that London is routinely obstructing the peace process, propping up Ukraine, trying to exert pressure on Russia with unacceptable conditions placed on Russia, propping up Zelensky's unacceptable maximalist, of course, position. And that London has obstructed the peace process since the start. This actually is true. In the past, it was Merkel and Hollande. Then it was Macron and Merkel. Then now we've got Mentz, which is just basically Merkel 2.0. Macron's in trouble, so his boyfriend Keir has stepped up to the plate because they don't have Canada's just shouting into the ether. Nobody's paying attention to them. But recently I had stated that I was unaware of any increase in Russian troops. I was expecting an announcement to increase the Russian troops. Russia has, and announced that they've brought it up to 700,000. These are stationed along the line of contact. This is up from 600,000 last year. Russia has increased its standing army to nearly 2.4 million, which includes 1.5 active duty personnel. So, what does that mean? Well, as people finish their tour as a conscript or as a soldier, the conscripts do not fight. They are border guards, they are trainees. Once they become a soldier, they have the option to volunteer. Now, it's unclear to what extent Russia's volunteers are split up, because they have basically a Army, Navy and Air Force, but they also have a rocket force, but their rocket force is actually part of the Army, Navy and Air Force. So let's say their army is actually split between their Army, Navy and Air Force, and their Navy, well, they have some air wing and they actually have tanks and combat troops and artillery, and it's an overlapping system is what I'm getting to. But okay, now we're talking about January 2024 with 600,000 soldiers. Ukraine approximately had the same amount. Now, despite all the claims that Ukraine has a recruitment problem, Ukraine allegedly has 900,000 active duty personnel. Notice I don't say combat soldiers. I would put it to you that Ukraine has, or is, counting the 300,000 that has yet to come out of Poland, Romania and Germany, although there's some training in England, they're insignificant in that figure, and they're also counting they're basically counting the police as well. And I would put it to you that as of January 2024, both sides had around 600,000 each. If Putin's increased it, that does mean Zelensky has increased it. But Zelensky hasn't increased it through recruitment. He's done it by basically trying to find civilians to fill roles that the military, getting the police to do and putting the border guards and the militias back into the fight. Kiev has struggled to replenish its forces, while the Russian army is steadily gaining ground. Including a short time ago, 52 minutes. That's about the time I crashed and started recording again. Twice. Sorry. First time I didn't see this story. So, obviously, I'm supposed to bring you this story about Murva, or Murvka, that battle group center has advanced near Derovsk. Yeah. So, Derovsk. Is that down here? I think it's so. I was looking for it. I think it's in here somewhere. So I'll probably find out that it's up here. I couldn't find it earlier on the map. Now, this comes off yesterday's announcement of the 100-year plan from Keir Starmer, which is ridiculous. Endless war, another step forward to bringing British troops into Ukraine. You have You have multiple settlements taken today. Now the number isn't well laid out, but I think it's 3. It could have been 4, but I think in the 4th one, as we see looking forward, it's only Russia advancing a little bit in a settlement they already control near Doropilia. Right back here. This is in Russian control up here. That somewhere around here, Russia made advances, but they already haven't taken the entire village. So 3 out of 4. But again, there are days where they don't advance, which averages out to 1 a day, which, according to even the hardest of anti-Putin forces within the New York Times, has said Putin, at the current rate of expansion, would take 300 years to reach Kiev. That's, of course, unless they went in a straight line and ignored their flanks, but yeah. But that's where we're at. This is not Russian propaganda. This is not fear porn. Multiple sites, multiple countries have not. Indian TV have shown drone flights in testing, and they were mocking the Chinese, who tried to mimic the Russian drone production and were failing quality control. This is the final assembly. This is the where they've got the engine, they've hooked it up to the various wires, and push it into place and lock it in. This is all ready to go. As you can see, there's often lots of conflict without any context, and Ukrainian sites are no better. They just produce this map and just go, Russia red, Russia bad, we're here, we're heroes. I think it comes down to that's the exact mentality you want. I'm not saying that Russia isn't any better. I'm just saying right now, I think the Ukrainians are just basically obsessed with heroic action, and they don't understand the consequences of war. I think Putin, in his speech with Tucker Carlson, whether you like it or not, laid out that they weighed the serious consequence of war before going into Ukraine, which is why they're being methodical rather than, they went in quick, like they did in Chechnya, and that general was dismissed because he had failed his objectives. He was not supposed to enter Kiev. He knew Kiev. Putin said Kiev was a trap. Didn't protect his flanks, and that's why you haven't seen any major Russian offensive since. And you are most likely to see a winter offensive coming soon. Oh, well, sorry. But yes. Gisandt B, this is the 153 millimeter. It is a large gun. It's highly mobile. It is versatile in its munitions, and of course, unlike most things on the battlefield, this is actually probably one of the most effective weapons on the battlefield. Guided munitions. Yeah. Fired what appears to be a large anti-armor round with packed, high explosive round into the building on a low trajectory, probably because it's guided munitions. That's probably why you didn't see. Probably why there was that edit where they took out the bit between the projectile arriving. But that's what they do every day. They set up their entire day just to locate the Ukrainian positions, pick a target, and blow it up. Whether that's deliberate or not, that's how despite the large numbers of troops, there's 900,000 Ukrainians allegedly. I'd put to you that also probably is actually 600,000 plus the 300,000 scattered throughout Ukraine. And I would put to also that Russia probably only has a third of its troops at any one time on the front as well. But that's basically that's what the artillery does. But it's if you're only firing 1 or 2 rounds a day, it's not a very high intensity war. But war nonetheless is a tragedy. And Zelensky seems to be oblivious to that tragedy, sitting there in his bunker with his arms crossed, talking about liberating a town that wasn't captured. But that happens every day. And the problem is, if you only consume one source of media, you will soon become caught in the Zelensky echo chamber. That's why you're here, I guess, to avoid the echo chamber. So, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon. which I have two. One for my writing, one for my RPG, based on my writing, and buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you to each and every one of you. Please support the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.